My mother said, "We don't want you here for Christmas." Understood? I answered calmly. Then I whispered one thing. The celebration is off. Her confidence shattered instantly. My mother didn't raise her voice. She never had to. "We don't want you here for Christmas." She said it the way people cancel appointments. Calm, efficient, as if emotions were unnecessary paperwork. The words landed softly, like snow. Cold, quiet, final. For a moment, I thought the connection had glitched, that maybe I'd misheard. But her expression didn't change. Not a flicker of doubt, not a trace of regret. We were on a video call. Behind her, the living room glowed warm and perfect, golden fairy lights wrapped carefully around the tree, ornaments placed with deliberate symmetry. Wrapped gifts were stacked beneath it, each one tagged neatly, each one meant for someone else. My younger brother crossed the frame, laughing at something off screen. He didn't even glance at me. Someone had already turned on the holiday playlist, soft bells, cheerful voices, manufactured joy. A family scene. Just without me. I smiled. It was a small smile. Controlled. The kind you learn when reacting honestly costs too much. Understood. I answered calmly. Her shoulders relaxed. She nodded once, satisfied, as if a difficult task had been completed. As if she hadn't just erased her eldest child from the one-day families pretended to be whole. "Well," she said, adjusting her sweater, "it's better this way. Less tension. Less me," she meant. I leaned closer to the camera. My face filled the screen now. I made sure she was looking directly at me. "Then I'll just say one thing," I whispered. She frowned slightly. "What?" "The celebration is off." Before she could respond, before confusion could turn into curiosity, I disconnected the call. The screen went dark. They never understood how much power I held. Not because I hid it, but because they never bothered to ask how I survived after they pushed me out. 5 years ago, I was the problem child. The one who didn't fit the image they liked to project. The one who asked uncomfortable questions at dinner tables. The one who noticed when numbers didn't add up, when stories changed, when loyalty was conditional. When my father died, I became inconvenient, a reminder of promises he'd made. A loose end they didn't want to deal with. They told relatives, friends, even neighbors that I had chosen independence, that I wanted to live my own life. That distance was my decision. The truth? I was quietly cut off. No inheritance. No support. No calls on birthdays. No messages on holidays. Just silence dressed up as tough love. I slept on borrowed couches, took jobs that paid barely enough to eat, learned very quickly that pride was expensive and survival wasn't pretty. But I learned something else too. I learned how systems worked, how ownership could be invisible, how influence didn't need applause. I rebuilt everything from nothing. And I rebuilt it carefully. The house they lived in, the one my mother loved showing off during holidays, still under my father's company trust. She lived there, but she didn't own it. The annual Christmas gala they hosted every year, the one that made my mother feel important, admired, envied, sponsored entirely by shell companies that traced back to me. The caterers, the decorators, the live band, the charity donations that earned her praise in public speeches, all mine. I didn't own things loudly. I owned them invisibly. And that night after the call, I finally used that ownership. I made 3 phone calls. No anger, no threats, no drama. Just quiet instructions delivered with professional politeness. Each vendor received the same message. A cancellation request, full compensation guaranteed. No explanation required. No one argued. No one questioned. By midnight, calendars were cleared. Orders were reversed. Schedules were wiped clean. By morning, Christmas no longer existed in that house. The first crack appeared 2 days later. My phone rang at 6:12 a.m. I stared at it until it stopped. It rang again at 6:13. Then the messages came. "Mom, did something happen with the caterers? Mom, call me. Mom, this isn't funny." I didn't respond. I went about my day normally, coffee, emails, meetings. Let the silence work for me the way it once worked against me. When I finally answered that evening, her voice wasn't sharp anymore. It was tight, controlled panic. "Why did the flowers cancel?" she asked. "They said." The account holder withdrew. "Oh," I said lightly, as if genuinely surprised. "I didn't realize you were still using those services." There was a pause. A long one. "What do you mean?" she asked. I could almost hear the room shrinking around her, the decorations suddenly looking less festive, the unanswered calls piling up. I replied calmly, "I've been paying for Christmas for years. You just never asked." Silence, then anger forced, desperate. "You have no right, no," I corrected gently. "I had no invitation." The line went dead, but the damage, that had already begun. Christmas Eve arrived without snow, without music, without guests. The street was quiet in a way it had never been before. No parked cars lining the curb, no voices drifting from open windows. Even the houses nearby seemed subdued, their lights dimmer, their celebrations smaller, as if something had gone wrong in just this one place, and everyone could feel it. The house that once overflowed with laughter now echoed with hurried footsteps and whispered arguments. Doors opened and closed too quickly. Phones buzzed unanswered. Every room held the residue of stress. By noon, the staff had stopped calling back. By afternoon, my brother stormed out. He didn't shout. He didn't argue. He grabbed his coat, muttered something about needing air, and slammed the door behind him. He had always hated tension, always escaped before responsibility arrived. By evening, my mother sat alone in the living room. The tree stood in the corner, tall and undecorated, its lights dark. Wrapped gifts remained half hidden in a closet, untouched. The scent of pine mixed with cold air from an open window she'd forgotten to close. She stared at the tree as if it had personally betrayed her. That's when I arrived. I didn't knock. I never needed to. The door opened easily, just as it always had. Some habits never change, even when relationships do. She looked up sharply, like she'd seen a ghost. For a second, neither of us spoke. "You weren't invited," she said finally, her voice weak, more out of habit than authority. "I know," I replied, setting my coat down over the back of a chair. "I came anyway." She stood up too fast, knocking into the coffee table. "This is cruel," she said. "You're doing this to punish me." I met her eyes. "No," I said quietly. "I'm doing this so you remember." She let out a short, brittle laugh. "Remember what?" "That you raised me," I said, "and then discarded me when it became inconvenient." Her face hardened, the familiar armor sliding back into place. "You think this is about feelings?" she snapped. "You left. You disappeared." I shook my head. "I survived." The word hung between us, heavy, undeniable. I reached into my bag and pulled out a folder, thick and worn at the edges. I placed it carefully on the table, right between us. She stared at it as if it might explode. "Open it," I said. Her hands trembled as she did. Documents spilled out: contracts, trust records, financial statements. Pages she had never bothered to read before. Signatures she recognized. Her name appeared often. Mine appeared where it mattered more. "The trust," I said calmly. "The house. The accounts. Dad didn't leave them to you." Her breath caught sharply, like she'd been struck. "He left them to me," I continued. "You were listed as a beneficiary, conditional, as long as certain terms were respected." Her fingers gripped the papers too tightly. "This can't be right," she whispered. "It is," I said. "You just never asked the right questions." She looked up at me, fear finally breaking through the anger. "Why wouldn't he tell me?" "He did," I replied. "You just didn't listen." The room felt smaller now, the silence heavier, but the twist wasn't the money. It was the letter. I slid a single envelope across the table. Her name was written on it in my father's handwriting, dated 6 months before his death. She hesitated before opening it, as if some part of her already knew. Her eyes moved across the page, then stopped. Her knees gave out, and she collapsed into the chair behind her. "He knew," she whispered. "He knew everything," I said softly, "including how easily you'd let me go once he was gone." Tears fell, then not dramatic, not loud, just quiet realization. The kind that arrives too late to fix anything. You canceled Christmas, she said brokenly, barely above a whisper. No, I corrected gently. You did. The moment you decided I wasn't family anymore. She looked around the room, the dark tree, the empty house, the silence that had replaced celebration. I stood and picked up my coat. At the door, I paused. For what it's worth, I said. You were right. She looked up at me, eyes red and hollow. No one needed me to come this Christmas. I smiled faintly. They needed me to stay away. I stepped outside into the cold night. Behind me, one by one, the lights inside the house went out, and for the first time in years I felt warm.